You're listening to the Music Educator podcast with your host, Bill Stevens, the 21st century music educator man.
Podcasting from beautiful Leesburg, Virginia. Welcome to the Music Educator podcast, bringing you the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. Here's your host and fellow music educator, Bill Stevens.
Welcome back to the Music Educator podcast. My name is Bill Stevens. I will be your host today once again, and thank you for joining me today. And if this is your first time, thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you. In today's episode, Season 4, Episode 18, we're going to be talking about encouraging passion in your music ensemble. Let's do this. Encouraging passion in your music ensemble is an important element when trying to develop the ideal musical culture. Exercising the creative juices is not just something to be practiced by band, choir, and orchestras. It is to be embraced by all performers in every form. Today, we will identify some key elements and suggestions you can use with your students to encourage passion in their musical craft. Now, today's show is a summary and a reflection on Dr. Shelley Jago's book, Teaching Instrumental Music, Developing the Complete Band Program, Chapter 16, Suggestions for Encouraging the Heart. Dr. Jago's biography and a plethora of instrumental resources can be found at shelleyjago.com. Also, check out the show notes for this link. I highly encourage you to check out her website and her professional resources available to music educators and students of music. Essential elements. In Dr. Jago's book, she recognizes 7 essentials for encouraging students to be passionate and heartfelt about their beloved craft. These elements include Essential 1, set clear standards. Essential 2, expect the best. Essential 3, pay attention. Essential 4, personalize recognition. Essential 5, tell the story. Essential 6, celebrate together. And Essential 7, set the example. We're going to go ahead and summarize some of what her book says, and we're going to talk about how we can use these essential elements in our program. As we identify these essentials, consider the possible applications for your classroom and students. I encourage you to draw your students in more and develop their love of music. Remember, you are teaching tomorrow's future leaders, and the world needs as many passionate educators as it can produce. Essential number 1, set clear standards. Now, when setting clear standards, it's important to be concise. Communicate your values to your students and why your music program is so important to you. Oftentimes, students find comfort in shared values and likes. Continue to build positive connections with your students and stay passionate about maintaining these positive relationships. Communicating passionately with students on an everyday basis may be difficult in some scenarios. Remind yourself and your students what you do by posting your values where they can read them every day. This can be on the board, the door, electronically on your computer, or anywhere that you come in contact with. This provides the subtle reminder why you chose to do what you do. Communication is key. You must communicate your values to your students if you want them to understand who you are and why you work so hard. Anything worth truly working on must have some sort of intrinsic value. Serving as a passionate role model gets noticed by these impressionable minds. First, make SMART goals more than just a yearly checkmark on your evaluation. Dr. Jago defines SMART goals as S, specific, M, measurable, A, attainable, R, results-oriented, and T, timely bounded goals. And this representation of SMART goals is a great template for achieving results. And in contrast to the author's view, personally, I use the SMART goal version where the R is actually replaced with realistic rather than results-oriented. However, I certainly understand it, and I certainly incorporate this in my goal. So some may argue this version, however, it works well in my teaching. One reason using SMART goals to encourage passion with your students is that they get to personally experience problem solving and the success associated with it. Be sure to provide specific and timely feedback to your students as you interact with them. Let your students know what is good or bad as they demonstrate their skills. If you wait, they will often forget about the subtleties of why they performed the way they did. Consider having one primary goal to focus on as you address a complex process. One example could be moving from one set to another, perhaps in marching band. There may be many issues in a single set change, however. Students often get overloaded and confused if faced with meeting multiple challenges all at one time with little to no fine-tuning. In regards to feedback, also enable opportunities for students to provide feedback to themselves. Can you think of ways to do this in your specific musical ensemble? If so, can you direct the conversation so that it is constructive and not an off-tangent type of social conversation? Announce and remind students on a regular basis of what program standards are when publicly recognizing a student. Students make the behavioral connections with the desired standard you are setting. Keep these compliments positive and meaningful. And finally, consider discussing with other professionals how they set goals and standards for their programs. In education, we all borrow and adapt great ideas to use in our classrooms. This valuable feedback from speaking with other colleagues can give you the performance-oriented or classroom management skills to meet your next goal to make your class a happier place to be. Essential number 2, expect the best. Dr. Jago continues to encourage music educators to be their best. One of the most important factors here is that if you want to be the best, you must surround yourself with the best. Now, what does this actually mean? Consider asking yourself what or who is an ideal music director that you would like to be like. Obviously, we're all unique in the sense that our parents tell us that we're all special as kids. However, consider what skills, demeanor, and abilities you want for yourself and your students. To accomplish this, provide exposure for your students and yourself to get musicians, teachers, and people who inspire. As a result, messages, spoken or not, get learned through prolonged exposure. It is contagious when you smile and you interact with others. So do more of it. You never know how much some people are quietly suffering inside, and how the simple act of a smile can make their day. This association of feeling good starts with you and what you do. Maximize this opportunity to be the best person you can be. There should always be a sense of growth for students. Do this by setting challenging but realistic goals. What is realistic is that one set of students may be different from another set. This is where professional relationships come into play. Get to know the skills, abilities, and personalities of your students so that you can find meaningful and growth-oriented goals for their overall development. Identify where your students are and how much they've grown. They will most likely associate this growth to you and your passion for teaching your craft. Practice creating clear mental images for your students. Be careful to stay to the point and concise with your imagery so you don't confuse your ensemble members. This approach to communication can be a powerful tool. As a music educator, you know that anything working for requires hard work to do it well. Be sure to do quality score study and research how to make your ensemble the best. This generally begins before your group even plays a note and the literature is even chosen. Consider your group's strengths, weaknesses, and their realistic ability to stretch and improve their musical skills. Dr. Jago recommends posting inspirational posters around your rehearsal room. Now, this single element may not change everything for the better, but when the child is mentally off task, it can help redirect them in the right direction and frame of mind. It would be a falsehood if we were all to claim all rehearsals were perfect. God knows mine haven't been. But there are times when you may, as a music educator, have wanted a rehearsal to go in a different direction. Get into the stress-relieving practice of meditation and the practices that are associated with it. You may find that you're a happier person. Essential number 3, pay attention. Learn about what makes your students tick. Show that you care and are interested in their success. Perhaps you go to one of their athletic events or attend a concert of theirs that is not under your direction. Students notice these gestures and will buy into your program too. When you pay attention to and learn about your students, it is easier to tell a story that you can accurately praise them. This serves as a lesson teaching tool for your ensemble members and can bring a sense of pride to the story-focused student. We all need ideas to build up our students. Consider keeping a journal where you store these ideas. Make these build-up proclamations easy to tell and transferable to students. Think about it. Do you really need a special reason to recognize a student? If you have access to student records, another easy way to make students feel special is to wish all of the students having a birthday for any given week a happy birthday. You can keep a birthday calendar and save time doing this short and sweet celebration with all of your students all at once. If you notice a series of individual students performing beyond expected standards, find an extraordinary way to recognize them. This should be done in a way that is not part of the normal classroom routine. Find ways to self-assess the way you communicate. This can be done by watching a video recording of yourself teaching. Analyze whether your facial expressions and/or gestures acknowledge student progress. Essential number 4, personalized student recognition. If you want to create a method of recognizing student achievement that is truly yours, consider asking what other teachers do. As educators, we often borrow and steal ideas of other successful teachers. Perhaps borrow an idea from a colleague and modify it to make it more of a personalized form of student recognition. Reflect back when you were recognized as a student. How did the teacher recognize you? What did the teacher do to make you feel special? Can you adapt this strategy in your own classroom? Dr. Jago refers to all types of strategies. However, she also recommends writing a thank you letter to deserving parents, staff members, and administrators. The person of focus will appreciate the letter, and your students will recognize the positive interaction he or she has with you and your program. Think big picture and send cookies to your secretary, custodians, and counselors. These professionals will recognize this gesture and thank you in turn in one form or another. Consider creating a personalized recognition award for certain positive actions. For instance, I do a Golden Stand Award once a month. The Golden Stand Award is a spray-painted music stand that is used by a student for that month. It's kind of like an Employee of the Month award, where the student is being recognized as a positive role model. One thing you can do to brighten up your rehearsal room is to create a recognition bulletin board. On this board, you can add sticky notes of student names and photos of students who do extraordinary things. You can also post this positive news on your monthly newsletters. One free electronic newsletter creator I recommend is S'more. You can find this at s'more.com. Essential number 5, tell the story. Some of the best movies show a coach, director, or teacher having these great pep talks that include stories that motivate their teams. Try practicing your storytelling abilities. If you can't, maybe you ask another staff member or parent to take on this role. Get students to share some of their stories that are relevant to the goals associated with your musical program. This is a great opportunity to learn more about your students. If there is a story that particularly interests you, write it down and keep it in a journal. Take special note of the lessons of the story and share them at a later time. Essential number 6, celebrate. A celebration with your students should be purposeful. A strong work ethic and achieving success should be rewarded in one form or another. And when celebrating, identify the purpose of each celebration. Purposeful celebrations should be for demonstrated skills, behavior, or reaching specific goals. When having a celebration, it should be festive with a genuine level of enthusiasm, energy, and sincerity. Be a real person and don't be afraid to use a little humor. This should be an excellent time for students to bond with you and their fellow peers. Consider creating a celebration board for your rehearsal room. This can be similar to your recognition board that we discussed earlier. Fill it with positive comments, names, and photos. Essential number 7, set the example. Ultimately, when we're encouraging passion in a music ensemble, you must set the example. There are proper and inappropriate ways to do this. It is important that you choose this in a way that maintains respect and professionalism. The best way to do this is to practice what you preach. Be transparent. Your standards and goals should be visible to your school and your local community. You can learn how this is done from experienced music educators. Remember to regularly communicate your values and standards through the spoken word and visual reminders. Think, if you were a student, could you communicate the values and standards of others? You are human, so be sure to reward yourself. There is no shame in this, and your work must be sustainable. Burnout leads to unproductive music programs. Thus, the solution is to keep things happy and productive for you. Finally, be sure to thank all stakeholders. This includes your students, your families, school staff, community, and yourself. Remember, you're an artist and an educator. This is a profession that requires the buy-in by your soul, your mind, and your body. If this is the life you want to live, then live it up. Conclusion. Dr. Jago has made some fabulous recommendations for encouraging passion for yourself as the educator and your music students. Consider reflecting on your own scenario. Are you happy and passionate about the teaching you do? Do your students know this? If you are not, is it due to the working conditions or is it something else? Take the time to reflect and allow yourself to grow as a professional and spread the passion to our future leaders of tomorrow. That is all the time we have for today. I want to thank you again for joining me for another episode of the Music Educator Podcast. It is a true, sincere pleasure to share this craft with lovers of music and educators just like you. Now, if you found value in today's episode, please feel free to leave a review and rate us on the Music Educator Podcast app, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast aggregator. Also, check us out on our blog at bandbuzz.org, our podcast website, themusiceducatorpodcast.com, or our TPT or Boom Card stores. Thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you join us next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Music Educator Podcast. For the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. You can subscribe to our podcast on every podcast aggregator or download the Music Educator app for free in the Apple or Google Play app stores. Furthermore, visit our blog at www.bandbuzz.org for additional music education resources. We will see you on the next episode of the Music Educator Podcast. And remember, music can change the world.